the end of last year, I think, Year 14 students have now been banned from competing at the Maadi Regatta, and this has taken on a great deal of, by a vote of 36-4 amongst the New Zealand Secondary School Rowing Association. It's taken on a great deal of controversy over the years. Is it finally settled? One of those who's led the charge to try and sort this issue out, and I would imagine it's just this issue quietly, but that extends this principle through to other sporting codes as well, is the headmaster of Auckland Grammar, Tim O'Connor, and he joins us now. Tim, thanks very much for joining us. Lovely to have you on.
Oh, pleasure, mate.
Tim, first of all, just Auckland Grammar, very quickly. You're a huge and prestigious school yourself. What's your role now?
Yeah, we're 2,770 this year, so yeah, we're continuing to grow, which is concerning for us. But the issues with the zone means that if you're living in it, you have automatic right to attend.
How do you get that big and still have, it's the same question of sort of Hamilton Boys High and schools of this size, I guess, and still have the ability to know what your third form kid coming in who needs a bit of extra assistance is doing?
Yeah, well, it's just about the number of, the systems you put in place, changing those systems to accommodate larger numbers, more staff, more skilled staff, more pastoral staff. So yeah, they do. I mean, the third form this year is a little bit smaller than some of our past ones. We're 505, so we're actually happy with the 500 intake.
Yeah.
But it grows to a sixth form is just over 600, which from our point of view is too big. But they're coming to try and access a different style of qualification in Cambridge rather than NCA.
Right. Well, yes, in actual fact, that's happening at my child's school as well. They've abandoned NCA for Cambridge too. Listen, just very quickly though, before we head on to the Year 14 issue, I'm interested. The Grammar Zone is, as we know, prestigious. It's been a real estate feature for, 30 years now, Tim, in Auckland. When you talk about the role getting so big, and yet you must have an enrolment zone, is it because of infill in that particular zone?
Yeah. Well, we've just got a growth in a number of apartments, and the change in Auckland Council's bylaws to allow, you can remove a single dwelling and build, townhouses, etc. There's a lot of that rather than large apartment buildings happening. So this just means that there are more and more people able to live within what is quite a restrictive zone, in all fairness.
So I was just wondering, can you close the zone anymore, or would that just be too controversial?
It would be pretty controversial,
problematic.
Given, people have invested, made decisions, and have decided that they'll spend more on a house in zone to access education of choice or style of education. So there is a problem across the country with zoning, but it is typically an Auckland-centric problem.
Okay, now leading on to this issue of the Year 14 students competing at the Maadi Regatta, I think you've been prominent on this one, Tim. Was the problem so much that the Maadi Cup was getting screwed and its integrity was getting compromised?
Yeah, our feeling was, and it's been supported very strongly. We had a Zoom call in maybe September, and I think on that call we had over 80 principals actually attend a Zoom call for a singular code. Such was the level of interest in the topic. And you're not necessarily talking about large numbers of students, Year 14s or, second year 7ths in the old days, returning. But what we were seeing was actually they were typically in 8s or 4s, where they were creating a significant advantage for a school. And so let's say, it was time for Timaru boys to actually, they developed a crew coming through and it was their turn. to effectively win the Maadi Cup, that they were being pipped by a school who had 2 or 3 year 14s in it, and so actually the spreading of the Maadi Cup around the country for when it's your turn effectively, that was being lost.
It's the school that's just down the road from you, down your state highway at Hamilton Boys High School, that's been regarded as the Year 14 Central. Was it because they kept winning the Springbok Shield and the Maadi Cup that this issue was brought to dramatic relief?
Look, it wasn't Hamilton Boys alone, in all fairness. I know everyone, it is a general discussion point, and we've talked openly with Hamilton Boys and about it as well. So it's no surprise that that discussion has been had, but it hasn't just been a singular school, and it hasn't only been boys' schools. In all fairness, or boys, boys involved with rowing. There's been an example of a Year 14 winning the final of the under-18 girls single scull, for example, in the past. So, look, there is New Zealand secondary schools rowing were suggesting that there wasn't a problem to see because it was such small numbers. Our view, and this was supported by New Zealand Rowing's chief physiologist, our view was that there is a distinct advantage given the increase in technical ability, muscle coordination, etc. So it had to be addressed. It didn't matter whether it was 1 student or 50 students, it had to be addressed.
Okay. Listen, my last year at school was 1974. Just so you know, I left when I was 16. I got put ahead a bit. But I remember running at athletics, but also playing sport against some 19-year-olds who had come through and done second year, 6th. In fact, one kid, second year, 5th, second year, 6th, and then end up in the 7th form. So they're 19 in the 7th form. What about those kids? The kind of children who are slow developers but stay at school and because mum, and we did have a second year 7th as well who'd failed completely his bursary, hadn't got his higher school certificate, his mum and dad sent him home. Is this a genuine place for the Year 14 student?
Yeah, there is a process where a school can actually apply for dispensation for students in that sort of category, if you like. And we're just asking New Zealand secondary schools rowing to actually put together a truly independent panel to review those cases on a case-by-case basis, because we don't suddenly want to have this rule in place and then for the rule to be fudged as well.
Well, it's going to be, because what you're talking about in terms of physiology is a 19-year-old is obviously a lot more competitive than a 17-year-old generally, particularly if they've had 2 years of extra rowing or rugby playing or football playing, or it doesn't matter really what it is. Have you thought about an age level that might be fairer?
The rowing, this particular decision, we have tried to get through so it could be effective for this season, and there was some difficulty in trying to do that. The long-term discussion now needs to be had, given that there's been such strong support for this across principals. The next discussion needs to be had with the school sport
Absolutely.
NZ to say, actually, shouldn't we have a ruling across all codes countrywide? Because you're right, rugby, huge advantage, and many other sports, athletics, great example as well. So we actually need to be having that conversation as heads of schools to say what is best for fair competition across all our schools, and for it to be a national standard.
Well, yeah, I mean, it does prompt that discussion.